Hello, this is Mr. McGaw for LAC 2, and today we're looking at narrative perspective and author's point of view. So in any story, there's dialogue and narration. The dialogue is when the characters are speaking. You'll see that part in quotation marks. That's how we know it's dialogue. And then the rest is narrations, when the narrator is speaking, whoever is telling the story, the storyteller. So for example, help, my cousin Jack said. Help would be in quotation marks as part of the dialogue. The narration would be my cousin Jack said. And we're going to be looking at point of view and how to figure out point of view. And to do that, you look at the narration. So we're not looking at dialogue, rather we're looking at the narrator, who's telling the story, and what perspective the story is being told from. So only the narrator's voice matters when determining point of view. And the trick to it is looking at the pronouns being used. First person, you'll see a lot of I, me, my, mine, we, us, ours. It's being told from the perspective of one of the characters. Second person, you're going to see you or your. That actually puts the reader as the main character. It's not commonly used. More common is third person, where you have a narrator telling the story about characters, but the narrator is not part of the story itself. So again, looking at pronouns, I would be first person, I am in the room. You come in the room would be second person. He or she came in the room would be third person. So to determine narrative point of view, look at which pronoun the narrator is using. With first person, the narrator is a part of the story. Think of like first person video games where you're seeing things from the perspective of the character. Same thing with stories. If it's first person, you're seeing it from that character's perspective. You are seeing a lot of I or we. Let's do some practice here. I knew something was wrong before I even went into the house. My uncle's truck was parked in the driveway. He never left work this early. The front door was already open. My mother was in the kitchen sitting at the table with my uncle. Neither of them looked up. Neither of them spoke. What point of view is this passage being told from? Would it be first person, A, second person, B, third person, C, or D, all of the above? What do you think? So with second person, it's usually, you'll see this in instructions, things like that, directions, because it uses you or from a your perspective. So for example, first gather your materials, add 1 cup of sugar to flour. Those are directions. It's putting you as the focus. So that would be second person, not used so often in stories. Third person, more common. The narrator usually isn't involved. It's telling the story about the characters. A lot of he, she, character names. There are actually 3 types of third-person narration that we're going to look at, and they differ in how much we know about the thoughts and feelings of the characters. So third-person omniscient, the narrator knows everything. Knows the thoughts and feelings of more than one character. So for example, Tim was mad at Shay, he blamed her. Shay knew Tim would be mad, but she wanted to live her life. We know what Tim is thinking, we know what Shay is thinking. We're seeing inside the minds of both those characters. It's an omniscient third person. Limited third person, we would only be able to see from one of those characters. So Tim was mad at Shay, he blamed her. Shay just left without saying anything. She left a note and then left him. We only know what she does. We don't know what she was thinking. But we do know what Tim was thinking. So that's third person limited. And there's also third person objective. That's when the narrator only knows what can be seen or heard. We're not getting inside the minds of any of the characters. It's only what is observable. So sort of like how we are in everyday life. We don't know what people are thinking. We only know what we can see and observe and what they say. So that'll be third person objective. Let's do some more practice. Carolyn looked across the room at Mike. He was so handsome, so perfect. She wished she had the courage to approach him, but she knew that someone like him would never be interested in someone like her. What point of view is this passage told from? A, first person, B, second person, C, third person limited, or D, third person omniscient? Here's another. I don't know what you expect from me, Eileen shrieked at her mother. She felt that her mother was always getting on her case over nothing. "You don't know what I expect?" her mother yelled back. How could Eileen stand there looking so misunderstood, her mother thought. Eileen knew it was wrong to leave her younger brother and sister home alone, but she had done it anyway. What point of view is this passage told from? A. First person. B. Second person. C. Third person limited. Or D. Third person omniscient. So here's some tips on identifying point of view. Check for first or second person before worrying about objective, limited, or omniscient. Ask whose story is the narrator telling. Is it his, mine, or someone else's? And focus on narration, not dialogue. Here's another. When I was 4 months old, my mother died suddenly, and my father was left to look after me all by himself. I had no brothers or sisters. So through boyhood, from the age of 4 months onward, there was just us two, my father and me. We lived in an old gypsy caravan behind a filling station. To be A, first person, B, second person, C, third person limited, or D, third person omniscient. Next one. The previous night, make your plans for the next day and then write them down. If you attend an exclusive samurai's party and feel timid, you cannot do your part in making it a successful party. You had better prepare by convincing yourself that you will have a grand time, and you should feel grateful for the invitation. What point of view is this passage told from? A. First person. B. Second person. C. Third person limited. Or D. Third person omniscient. And another. They were standing under a tree, each with an arm round the other's neck, and Alice knew which was which in a moment, because one of them had "Dumb" embroidered on his collar, the other D. I suppose they've each got Tweedle round at the back of the collar, she said to herself. They stood so still that she'd quite forgot they were alive, and she was just looking round to see if the word Tweedle was written at the back of each collar, when she was startled by a voice coming from the one marked Dumb. What point of view is this? First person, second person, third person limited, or third person omniscient. So let's recap. The narrator is the voice that tells the story, the storyteller. Point of view is the perspective from which the story is told. First person point of view means the character in the story is telling the story. Third person point of view, the narrator is not a character in the story, it is someone outside of the action. It could be an omniscient narrator who knows the thoughts and feelings of all the characters, a limited narrator that only knows the thoughts and feelings of one, or an objective narrator that doesn't know the thoughts or feelings of any of the characters.